For those that I don't recognize, and I actually don't recognize several people in the meeting, which is great. My name is Algernon Cash. I'm the director of the Triad Food and Beverage Coalition. We are basically an advocacy, marketing, and outreach program that operates on behalf of the food and beverage industry here throughout the region, here in the Triad. We are very honored to be able to host today's webinar, and so thankful and grateful that Patrick, who's very, very busy, made time to be here with us today. At the subject of today's conversation will be PPP loan forgiveness. So as many of you know, that's not isolated to the restaurant industry as a whole. So some of you that's on the call may be in the restaurant industry, maybe you just are a small business owner. So either way, no matter who you are, I think today's information will be applicable to what you have going on. I would encourage everyone, if you're not familiar with the Food and Beverage Coalition, please go check out eatdrinktriad.com. It's a very basic website. Not a lot of information there, to be honest with you, but more information available if you go to our Facebook page and search Triad Food and Beverage Coalition. A lot of great information there, talking about our meals program, our youth culinary arts program that we're rolling out this summer for 16 and 17-year-olds, and just all the great outreach and advocacy work that we've done on behalf of the industry the past year as a result of COVID-19. We also have a group on there, so if you love to eat, I think everybody loves to eat, and you want to try to find some great places to go check out here locally, go join our group at Eat Drink Triad, and that's of course on Facebook as well. And the YouTube channel is also Eat Drink Triad, and you can subscribe there. So now that I have all my commercials out of the way, we can get to the heart of the matter. I actually had a chance to meet Patrick Rodriguez this year. Like many of us, we got so many questions about what's happening with all these various SBA and government loan programs. And I will tell you that not only is he knowledgeable, but he is very responsive. I've texted him, I've called him, I've messaged him, and he always gets back to me. And that's something that I think we can all value in the midst of what we're going through right now and all the uncertainty that's out there. So he's going to do a presentation on PPP loan forgiveness. I'm sure he'll have a Q&A session. But with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Patrick. And Patrick, the stage is yours.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for having me today. I appreciate your time and effort in putting this together. For a lot of folks, this is just going to be hopefully a helpful review to bring some peace of mind to you on the PPP loan program, meaning that you probably are either at the end of your PPP covered period or have already used those funds for your covered period. So this is just going to be a nice review to help you kind of just put a button on it and hopefully make you feel like this is going to be an easy task to apply for forgiveness. I will start out by saying that we are seeing more and more lenders opening up their loan forgiveness portals for the first draw that primarily were done in 2020. So if you've had a 2020 PPP loan, those lenders are now pivoting from disbursement and doing the second draw. They're pivoting over to doing the first draw forgiveness. And so a lot of banks have already opened up their portals. There are a few holdouts that are still being worked on with the SBA. And if you're in that bunch, you know who you are. But SBA is working with them to open up their portals and allow those PPP borrowers to apply for forgiveness. And I'm sure that just from based on experience, SBA wants to get those portals right the first time. So when PPP borrowers go to those lender portals, it's seamless and there's not any snafus involved with the rollout. So patience on that front. If you have any Q&A regarding that, we can cover that at the end of the presentation. So let me do my share screen real quick. Might have to I'm not sure if I have the privilege of sharing my screen right now.
Okay, hold on, Patrick. Let me, I'm sorry, I didn't do that. Give me one second. I'll put you on as admin. We were just
Okay.
trying to actually get you live on Facebook too, so people that might follow our page can tune in there from the live stream.
Okay, I see it.
So
Yeah.
give me 30 seconds. It's going live now, and then I'm gonna turn the admin rights over to you.
Okay. So I'll just say a little bit myself. So I started with the SBA in 2014 here in North Carolina. Before that, I worked in the SBA in Los Angeles, starting in 2008. But it's been a pleasure working here in the North Carolina territory. I cover everything from Chapel Hill over to the Outer Banks and down to Goldsboro. And I work directly with borrowers, with small business owners, with SBA lenders, and with government contractors. So I have a little bit of everything in my pot. All right, so I'll start the slideshow here. Make sure I get it right. Okay, that's it. Okay, guys, so you should be seeing my screen right now. Just want to remind everybody, Sba Gov Backslash Updates is a really good way to keep up with all things SBA. And we're in the middle of a lot of different programs. So we have the PPP, we have the EIDL, Targeted Advance, Supplemental Advance, RRF for restaurants. We also have the SVOG for the shuttered venues. So it's a great way to keep up to date on all the news pertaining to these programs. This is a nice little shortcut. Remember, the PPP program is administered by lenders. And so when you start applying for forgiveness, you're not going to necessarily need the SBA form right off the SBA website, or you won't even need the PDF most likely. These are links to those PDFs. Most likely the lender will be putting these questions from these forms directly on their lender portals, and you'll be filling this out online digitally and signing digitally and submitting through the lender. And then that forgiveness application will be transmitted to the SBA electronically, and then we will review it and decide on it, and then make that payment or give that forgiveness to the lender and to the borrower. So that's kind of how the process works. We'll talk more about that later, but these are the actual forms that you can look at as a guide to help you fill out the online portal. We're going to talk about the forgivable costs involved in a PPP loan. We're going to talk about the covered periods, and we're going to cover some other of the salary wage reduction questions. How do you count FTEs? What happens if you reduce an FTE? And what are the two safe harbors for the PPP? So let's talk about some of the big headline news that's out there. So you probably know this already. EIDL advances are no longer deducted from PPP forgiveness payments. So there's a lot of folks out there that maybe paid some advances already back to the lender, or maybe you were told by the SBA to return the advance because you got a PPP. Well, there's a lot of different scenarios in there, but the end summary of all this is that if you had an EIDL advance, that's now no longer a part of PPP. You can take the advance, take the forgiveness, they're not connected. And if you paid on any of that, SBA is working through the process of making the borrower, the PPP borrower, whole. Or if it's sitting on the balance sheet of the bank, SBA is going to make payments to the lender directly. So either way, the advance should be available to you and the PPP loan as well. You can choose an 8 or 24-week covered period with this new round. If you returned all or part of your PPP from round 1, you can reapply. A lot of that's already been worked through. There's very limited circumstances for those, for that bullet. You have new expanded eligibility and forgiveness we're going to talk about. And you probably know this already, but if you know, this is when you're calculating your second draw. You do not include your first draw money in your gross receipts. That's pretty much probably water under the bridge by now. Also, forgiven PPP loans are not taxable income, and expenses paid with PPP loan funds are now tax deductible. The North Carolina Assembly is working on some legislation, I think, to make it in line with the federal guidelines. I'm not exactly sure if that's been signed by the governor just yet. So this is a real kind of confusing diagram, but it's fairly easy if you just kind of walk through it. So if you have a PP loan of $150,000 or less, you're going to go onto your lender portal and they're going to ask you questions that are a part of the 35OS application. So you won't have to worry about some of the calculations. It'll probably take less than 30 minutes to fill out that 35OS or the lender portal equivalent of the questions they're going to ask you if you have a PPP loan under 150,000. So there's a few questions, there's no math involved, and you do a lot of certification saying you kept your records, you spent it correctly, you followed the rules, you test all that, and then you sign digitally on the portal. Okay, so if you had a loan, so if you had a loan greater than 150, then you have two options. If you had no salary or wage reductions above 25%, you're going to use the 3508EZ. Okay, so that's pretty easy. If you did have salary and wage reductions above 25%, you're going to have to use the long form, the 3508. And remember, this isn't actually, you probably won't even see the form on the portal, lender portal. You'll just be seeing questions from those forms that they're using in order to relay information back to the SBA. So in all honesty, it's going to be more like a TurboTax-like application where you'll be walking through the application, answering questions, leading you to other questions if you answer yes or no. And this will all be in the background for the PPP borrowers part. All right, so just a quick reminder, you probably are in the midst of all this or have spent this funds already, but 60% has to be paid at least on payroll. And you can then spend 40% on the non-payroll side of the house, meaning rent, mortgage interest, utilities, and these added forgivable expenses such as, I'll cover these here more in depth. Operations expenditures such as cloud, software, cloud computing, other HR and accounting needs, property damage due to any public disturbances that occurred in 2020 that are not covered by insurance, supplier costs. So purchase orders, orders of goods in effect prior to taking out the loan that are essential to the recipient's operations. Supplier cost of perishable goods can be made before or during the life of the loan. And then PPE to help protect your employees, your customers, and to help modify your establishment. So that could be plexiglass, that could be outdoor dining, things like that. Okay, so eligible costs. Let's get into the payroll piece of the forgivable funds here. So if you have salary and wages, that's obviously forgivable. Hazard and bonus pay is forgivable. Commissions and tips are all part of what we count as payroll and would be forgivable. On the benefit side, you have paid leave, group health, group life, and retirement. And on the employment taxes side, only state and local, no federal. Okay, so do not include employer contributions for federal employment taxes. Did anybody have a question? No. Okay. We will be doing Q&A at the end. So this is just a reminder, you had an 8 weeks minimum covered period up to 24 weeks. You could have chosen any number of weeks in between those two bounds, between 8 and 24. That would be up to you as a borrower. When you extinguished your PPP funds, you can then submit to the borrower for forgiveness. And like I said earlier, a lot of these lenders are now just opening up their portals for forgiveness. So that should be in the coming weeks and maybe a month or so. That's if you had a second draw. If you've had a first draw, you should be applying for forgiveness currently. So cash compensation caps for employees are going to be different than the owner employee out there. So if you had a maximum 24 weeks, the most you could pay an employee through PPP funds would be $46,154. For the owner employee, with anyone with greater than a 5% stake in the business, their maximum would be $20,833. Significant difference here. So if you use different number of weeks to use your PPP loan over, there would be different caps for that owner employee. 15,000 and change for 8 weeks, 19,000 and change for 10, and then for the full 12 plus weeks, it would be 20,833. So this gets into the weeds a little bit. I'm gonna read it because I think it's important just to get it right. So this is regarding payroll compensation and benefits. So health benefits and retirement benefits. They're very similar as SBA uses them in the PPP. So health insurance contributions made on behalf of self-employed individuals, general partners, and owner employees of S corporations are not eligible for forgiveness. Okay. Health insurance contributions made on behalf of C Corp owner employees are eligible for forgiveness. And then similarly, retirement-wise, retirement benefits, loan forgiveness is not available for retirement contributions made on behalf of self-employed individuals or general partners. Retirement contributions made on behalf of owner employees of S Corps, as well as owner employees of C Corps, are eligible for loan forgiveness. So there's a little bit of difference between the health benefits side and the retirement benefits side. This is a nice little chart to help break it down a little bit easier. So if you're a partner and you cannot use PPP loans for either retirement or health, if you're an S Corp, you can use it for retirement. If you're a C Corp, you can use it for both retirement and health. That helps you kind of just give a quick rundown of how you're going to be applying for forgiveness. Okay, so this is, I make fun of this, but it's like a stop here. Like, so if you have a loan of $150,000 or less, you're going to be applying through your lender portal, and it's going to be maybe a 20-minute exercise with a bunch of initialing and one signature, and you'll be pretty much done with it. It doesn't matter if you've reduced employees or reduced salary under that $150,000 PPP loan amount. That's where they've expanded the use and made it more user-friendly for small businesses, because a lot of those are just owner employees. Now, if you have a loan over 150, you will have to track your reduced salary and wages and any cuts in FTEs. Okay, so this is for those folks that have a PPP loan over $150,000. Okay, so if you have a PPP loan over 150 and you didn't spend it on qualifying costs, your forgiveness is going to be reduced, right? If you spent more than 40% on non-payroll cost, your forgiveness is going to be reduced. If it wasn't spent during the covered period, those monies will not count and you'll have to repay those Therefore, your forgiveness will be reduced. If you decreased your FTE headcount and were not eligible for the FTE exemption or FTE safe harbor, it will be reduced. If you decreased your salary and wages by more than 25% for any employee that made less than $100,000 in 2019, and you did not meet the safe harbor, your forgiveness will be reduced. So remember, you had until December 31st of 2020 to restore the FTEs and salary levels for any changes made between February 15th to April 26th. Okay, all right, let's see here. So this is, again, this is all going to be being done in the background on the lender portals. When I kind of reference 3508EZ and 3508, the lender is going to hopefully make this an easy exercise by doing it almost like a TurboTax like exercise. If you're familiar with that, it basically just walks you through the questions and it pops up additional questions depending on how you answer the question. So if you have salary reductions, FTE exceptions, or safe harbors, this is where you're going to start getting it through these on your lender portal. So if you have decreases in either can mean decreased forgiveness. So salary or wages is reduced no more than 25%, and FTEs are lower during the covered period than the previous quarter. So this is how you're going to measure it. So here's your covered period, which you used your PPP loans for, and you're going to compare it to the most recent full quarter. So that's how you compare apples to apples when you're calculating your FTEs and salary. So this is just a quick little chart. It's kind of a fun little chart, but if you have an individual whose salary was reduced by 0.75%, you would have a 25% reduction, you'd be okay. It didn't go over 25%. On the instance of Karen here, she had a 66% reduction. Well, let me refigure that. She had a 34% reduction in her salary, which then kicks in that PPP loan forgiveness reduction. So you have to be careful of that. Hold on one second. Okay, all right. Okay, so this is how you determine your FTE. So you're going to have a chart. Most likely they're going to have a worksheet. The actual forms on the SBA website come with a Schedule A worksheet where you figure this information out before you put it into the application. The lender's most likely going to have this worksheet available to you online. But the simplified method is the easiest method to use. If you work 40 or more hours a week, you're going to put a 1 for that employee. If you work less than 40, you'll put a 0.5. And in the end, it'll all kind of average out. So if you have FTE reductions, exceptions, so this is when you had an FTE, they left or they were fired for cause, and you can still claim that that employee based on how they left or why they left. So if you made a good faith written offer to rehire an employee and you were rejected and you have a written documentation of that, that would not count as an FTE reduction. If you had to fire an employee for cause, that would not count as an FTE reduction. If they voluntarily resigned, that would not count. And if they voluntarily requested and received a reduction of hours, that would not count toward a decrease in your hours. Or the last one is you are unable to hire a similarly qualified individual by December 31st of 2020. That would also enable you to not count them toward a reduction. Okay, so there's 2 safe harbors in the PPP program, and they're both based on activity and closure. I guess mandated closures are restricted hours by state, local, county, federal officials. So if you had an establishment that was closed or had reduced hours during these times, then you could claim safe harbor number 1, and you would be able to reduce wages and salaries and not have to worry about having PPP loan forgiveness being reduced. Same thing for safe harbor number 2, very not similar, but it falls in line with what we were talking about just a minute ago. So if you had reductions, but you were able to restore those employees before the cutoff date for PPP 20, it would be December 31st, and PPP 21 would be the last day of the covered period. So if you restored employees before those times, you would then fall within safe harbor number 2. Okay, just remember, so if when you guys are out there, you have your loan sitting out there with the lender, you've had your covered period, you spent all your money, now you're in what we call the deferral period. So you have 10 months after the end of the covered period as a deferral, and you do not have to pay any principal or interest on that PPP loan while you're applying for forgiveness, basically. So this gives you a nice long amount of time for the lenders both to ramp up their forgiveness portals, for the borrower to make sure they have all their documentation, and then apply for forgiveness without any worry about P&I payments. Because remember, the PPP loan is structured as a 100% forgivable loan, but at the end, it's still a loan that you have to apply for forgiveness for. If you don't, then you will have to start making P&I payments on that loan. So this is how it works. So if you within the covered period of 10 months, no payments at all, as long as you apply for forgiveness within those 10 months. Even if the SBA has it in their hands, the lender has it in their hands, past that 10-month mark, you do not have to pay on the PPP loan while it's being reviewed for forgiveness. Okay. Let's say it goes past the 10 months, for some reason you didn't apply for forgiveness, you would have to start making payments on month 11 of after the covered period ended. And that would be a 1% loan at a 5-year term, most likely. For the early ones, it might be a 1% loan on a 2-year term. But for most everybody, it's a 5-year term. Now you can make payments on that if you like. I don't see why anybody would want to, but you could. And then the absolute last period you can apply for forgiveness is the last, I want to say the last day, but it would be the last day of your loan before your loan matures. So if that 5-year loan ended in 22, 23, 24, 25, 20, in 2026, and you were paying it in June, you could literally apply for forgiveness in June of 2026 and then have that money reimbursed to you. But I don't think a lot of people are going to go that route, and I'm sure the bank would rather have the SBA pay them off in a lump sum versus having that 1% interest loan on their books for 5 years. So this is the process. So you're going to have your application. You're going to submit it to the lender through their loan portal. They're going to have 60 days to review it. And then the SBA is going to have another 90 days. This is max, by the way. They have a maximum amount of 60 days to review. SBA has a maximum amount of 90 days to review. And then they're going to give you some answers, which is going to be approved in full, approved in part, denied, and then denied without prejudice. So those are the 4 responses SBA will give the lenders regarding the loan forgiveness applications. Most likely, these are going to take, this process right here is probably going to take weeks, maybe a couple of weeks at the most. We don't expect it to take the full, 100 and whatever, 50 days it's going to take. So just remember, you want to keep your documentation for 6 years. That's what SBA has been telling, headquarters has been telling the field that, the absolute maximum amount of time we can go back is 6 years. So keep that information for 6 years, put it in a folder somewhere. But you want to have the proof of your payroll, proof of your mortgage interest payments, proof of your utility payments, all that, to provide in case SBA requests it. For most folks under 150, you will not need to submit it. For those of you that have a PPP loan greater than 150, through the lender portal, they'll be asking for certain documentation, and then you'll be uploading that to the lender portal, and the lender will then pass it on to the SBA. Here's some examples of what they're wanting to have you hold on to or submit: bank account statements, tax forms, payment receipts, and for non-payroll, like I said earlier, mortgage interest payments, lease payments, utility payments, and purchase orders, etc. for the non-payroll side. If for whatever reason you guys are going through a change of ownership with the establishment, you have to notify the lender, the PPP lender. They will set up an escrow account in the amount of your PPP loan. And when that sale goes through, they'll be putting that money into the escrow account until your PPP loan is forgiven, and then you'll get that money back. And with that, I will stop sharing and take questions from anybody out there. There might be a couple in the chat already. I'll take Sean's. Is there an advantage to choosing 24 over 8 weeks? It really just depends on your situation. How are you utilizing the funds? Is it primarily payroll? Is it going to be more non-payroll related costs? If it's non-payroll related, maybe you need to stretch it over 24 weeks.
It's all payroll, sir. And
it's all payroll.
The soft stuff is just all payroll, but it was over a couple of months period is what we did.
Yeah, I don't see any advantage to using 24 over 8. I mean, unless it's the, you'd have to watch out for the maximum amount you're able to pay yourself,
Okay.
up to that $100,000 limit.
Yeah, we're nowhere near.
But if it's not, then there's no reason you shouldn't pick the one that's most convenient for you.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Will all of us receive a copy of this report? Yeah, I think, yeah, sure. I think Algernon mentioned that it's going to be on their website. It's being recorded, and so they'll have it available for you online.
Just real quick, Patrick, the archive version will be available on our YouTube channel, so you can search Eat, Drink, Triad. And if you go to Facebook, search Triad Food and Beverage Coalition. It's actually already being recorded live right now on Facebook, so the recorded version will be available as soon as Patrick is done with his presentation.
Nice, thank you, sir. Yeah, I think.
And Patrick, I heard you say something earlier too about the state working on the tax forgiveness associated with PPP. That has cleared the House. I don't believe it's cleared the Senate, and we do have an indication that the governor will sign it as long as the General Assembly gets comfortable with it. But I don't believe that bill has been presented to him yet.
Okay, good information. Yeah, I knew it was in the somewhere in the process. So a lot of states, we get clippings on this, and a lot of states are passing that as we speak. Every couple of weeks, I hear about a new state catching up to the federal guidelines. Miss Allen, did you have a question, Miss Allen?
Yes. I'm an independent contractor. Mm-hmm. So how do I keep up with how I pay myself as far as to give proof of that?
Sure. Well, if you had, depending on where the PPP loan ended up in your bank account or however that was, do you have a bank account for your business and a personal bank account?
It's the same.
it's the same. Do you have a checking account? Are you able to write checks off of your business account?
Can I tell him
Yeah, I could.
pretty soon?
I would just write a check to yourself
Okay.
to have that kind of paper trail
Okay.
and cash it, and have that be kind of a notice that that's the amount that was taken out for payroll.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Let's see. Just wondered if you know this, in the second round of PPP is still available. Do you ever receive forgiveness for the first before you apply? So that's a good question. So you do not have to get forgiveness for the first before you apply for the second round. And so PPP money was thought to have lasted, or was projected to be lasting till May 31st. And what they're thinking is that it's going to be a lot let me go back. I'm confusing myself on this. So the SBA set up different pots of PPP money for different lenders. So they set up a PPP pot for the big banks. They set up a separate PPP pot of money for the community banks. They set up one for the CDFIs, which are the nonprofit lenders. And then they also set up pots for numbers of employees. So from 3 to 100, 3 to 200, 200 to 100, 100 to 50, 50 to, whatever. So long story short, all the money in all the pots, except one, has dried up. The only pot of PPP money left is with the Certified Development Financial Institutions. Those are the nonprofit lenders of the world. And in our area, the only PPP lender left still doing PPP loans is Mechanics and Farmers Bank out of Durham. They have branches all over the state, but their headquarters is in Durham. And from what we know, they are still continuing to accept second round PPP applications until this Friday. So if you have not applied for a second draw PPP loan, go to the Mechanics and Farmers website. They have a PPP landing page, and you can apply through Mechanics and Farmers until Friday. So normally we have a multitude of lenders to direct people toward, and we're always agnostic when it comes to our lenders. We never really need to just single out one lender, because we mostly have dozens of lenders participating. But in this particular instance, that's the one lender that we know of that's still participating and still has second draw money available for folks. Sorry, I got into the weeds a little bit. I just want to kind of explain it a little bit to make sure people have an understanding of, if you have a loan with other lenders right now in the second draw process, if it's well into that process, most likely that money has already been set aside for you. But if it's still under review, then as of this Friday, I think SBA is going to kind of cancel all those PPP loans that hasn't progressed through the system yet, and release those funds for folks that are further along, and making sure that they get their money. All right.
I need to ask a question.
Yes, sir.
I have not gotten a confirmation. I sent my PPP forgiveness application a month ago. Is it still too late, or what is the status, or what would you suggest I do?
Sure. So on the forgiveness side, you've used your money, you've now gone back to the lender and are applying for forgiveness. If you are able to submit that through the portal, the maximum amount of time they have to review it is 60 days, so 2 months. So it's right in the middle of that. Most likely they're going to submit it fairly quickly. And then what they do is they collect batches of these loan forgiveness applications. So they may collect the first 5,000 of them, and then they submit them to the SBA in a batch. And that makes it more efficient for us to review it. So they may be doing it in batches. So maybe at the end of this month, they submit a batch, or until they reach a certain number, then they submit it. But the most amount of time they can hold on to it is 60 days.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you've had yours in the pipeline for a month now, I would assume you should be hearing something within the next couple of weeks.
Mm. So this mechanics and farm, I used to have a small business account there. Are you saying I should go back to them, or should I use my current checking account or business account at the credit union?
Are you looking to apply for a second draw?
Well, I'm not really sure, to tell you the truth. That's why I'm on this.
Sure. Yeah. So the first draw worked out for you though, right? You got a PPP loan, you're able to use it. Okay. Everything was fine on that end.
No, I got the EIDL last year. I didn't get the PPP.
So you haven't applied for any PPP money at all?
Well, yeah, my son and I, we invited last month. That's this for this forgiveness. That's the only one we applied for.
Okay.
On the West, see, I knew it was first or second, but I'm assuming for the forgiveness, this is the second PPP.
Got it.
So I never did apply for the first.
Okay. So, and the PPP loan is not a normal loan. So a lot of folks, even in my mind, I have to break it into different parts. So PPP part one is you go and you find out how much you're eligible for, right? So you look at your payroll costs for that year before, 2019 or 2020.
Mm-hmm.
You average your month, you get your average monthly payroll for that year, 2019 or 2020. And if you're a normal business, you multiply it by 2.5, and that'll be your loan amount. So your average monthly payroll multiplied by 2.5, right, and that's your PPP loan amount. If you're a food and beverage or restaurant or bar or tavern or other types of establishments that deal with food and are hospitality, you multiply by 3.5 to get your PPP loan amount. Okay. Then you use it for those 8 weeks or 24 weeks, whatever you decide on. And then after you use it, then you apply for forgiveness. So that's like phase 3.
Right.
So from what I'm hearing is that you're looking for phase 1, meaning that you want to apply for a PPP loan. So if you're just now thinking about applying for a PPP loan, to get the money in the first place, you have to go to Mechanics and Farmers to get that money. That's the only establishment, only lender that's left that's distributing PPP money at this time.
Okay.
So that's where I would direct you toward. And if you want, I'm going to put my email in here. You can send me an email.
Okay.
And I will forward you the name and contact for
Trade Passport Export Assistance on Demand.
Okay, so there's my email address. It's patrick.rodriguez@sba.gov. Just send me an email. I'll reply back right after this, and I'll send you the website and the phone numbers to call to get in to the.
Okay, put it back up there again. Put the email up there again, Pat.
It's patrick.rodriguez@sba.gov.
I just need to make sure I spell Rodriguez right.
So RODRIGUEZ @sba.gov.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So I don't want to confuse anybody, but if you're just now thinking about applying for a PPP loan, that's the only place you go right now. Forgiveness is a whole other piece of the puzzle. That's phase 3. You've already used your money, and now you're just looking to get the forgiveness.
Yeah, I'm just waiting to get my money.
Got it. Yeah. So we need to get you in the pipeline the next day or so before the 21st.
Okay.
And I've also had this question pop up. Are they thinking about more federal funding for PPP? Is Congress going to pass something? And we don't know. We haven't heard anything through the clippings or from the agency on additional PPP money or additional PPP time. So as of today, we don't know anything if it's going to be extended or not. We haven't heard anything on that. All right, guys. And let's see, any other questions? I think I answered most of them in the chat. I think that's about it. So the way Sean did put something in the chat that I want to make sure people understand a little bit better. And that is if you didn't get any PPP money last year in 2020, you would still consider the money coming out now as your first draw. So unless you've had a first draw PPP loan, you will not be able to get the second draw, right? So that's
Patrick, I did back in February. It's just on the line, and the bank said you will just be able to sneak you in before the 31st of May for a second draw.
Got it.
We thought we ended up taking an EIDL loan, which was crazy.
Sure.
We thought that it was PPP, so there's confusion initially in our minds about it. So we're hopeful of a second draw, and the bank called here last Friday, but they haven't returned the calls. I've put in 16 calls to them back and can't get an answer.
Okay. Well, why don't you email me as well and just give me a short summary of what's going on, and maybe I can look it up and see where it is.
Very grateful. Thank you, sir.
Sure. That's a good point too. Yeah.
Pat, I may need your help similar to Sean's also, because I did this basically. I think I did basically the same thing. Is I got the EIDL last year.
Got it.
And then I remember I got a letter from the SBA saying that I could resubmit or something for the EIDL.
Right.
And so
yeah.
So I'm almost like Sean in a way. I said I got the EIDL last year that I followed through. Then I got another letter to talk about the PPP, and so I probably need some help. So,
sure. Yeah, we'll just email me and we'll get on the phone call and we can walk through it. Yeah. So on the EIDL front, I'll just say a quick couple of words on that. Is that if you had an EIDL, which the economic injury disaster loan that comes directly from the SBA, those were going out the door all of last year, and then I think in December, is when they put more money in the pot, and they started emailing people telling them that they could ask for an additional money up to 24 months of working capital, and to go back in. And now they have a portal. You can go back in and check your application in the portal and see where it is. And most likely they ask for additional documents, maybe a 4506T or something along those lines, or financials or something along, tax returns. I'm not sure exactly what they're asking from everybody, but ask for that information, and then they process that increase, and it's taking about a minimum 4 weeks to process those EIDL increase requests.
Okay.
So if you guys have a question, and I'm free to take calls too, but I'll just type this out here. That's the 817-868-2300. is the SBA Disaster Loan Processing Center. So if you applied for an idle increase and have not heard a word on it, I would recommend you call that number and then just check in with them to make sure they have all the required documents that they need for your application.
Patrick, if you've done that and you've got a letter back saying it was rejected, but it's still not clear what we did wrong, there's obviously a dot or a tittle we've missed. Do they answer those questions? Because they seem reluctant to kind of give that direction.
Yeah. Was it for an increase or for the original amount?
It was for the increase.
It could be a number of things. It could be that you didn't submit the proper paperwork. It could be that you know, I don't know. It could be a number of things. Yeah.
We'll look again. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. If you
we don't mean to be stupid. It's just it's
no, it's not. It's very you know, so a lot of folks don't know, but the Office of Disaster Assistance is an agency within an agency. So they have their own appropriations, their own leadership, their own management, their own database. So as an SBA proper employee, I cannot see into the disaster loan application portal and remedy or fix or triage these applications. I gotta talk to somebody in disaster assistance and work through them to have them do that. But it's possible. And so if there's questions on your specific application, I can email a help desk and they usually get back to me within a couple of days. I would definitely need your application number and just, you know, your contact information to submit it with.
Thank you, Patrick.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna do likewise, Patrick.
Okay, yeah, definitely here to help. That's what we're here for. Like I said, the PPP money is priority. I would put that on the front burner, get that PPP application in the pipeline as soon as possible. Idle money is not going to run out anytime soon. There's like $35 billion left in there. So the PPP money is the most important to get that figured out as soon as possible because that ends on Friday.
Okay.
Hey, Patrick, you actually said something that made me have a question. You said there's about 35 billion in the EIDL program, which it doesn't seem like it's all the same demand that PPP or even the Restaurant Revitalization Fund has. What's the likelihood Congress may just reappropriate those dollars so we can use them in a more effective program?
That's a great question. That's above my pay grade, Algernon. That's a very good question. I don't know. There's this new, I don't know what the thinking in Congress is. It seemed to be clearer the last bill that came out. There was a lot of information on what was going to be in it. I don't know what Congress is contemplating now. It's been pretty quiet on the PPP front for the last couple of months.
Yeah, because the Restaurant Revitalization Fund grants was funded with about 28.6 billion. Seems like they had about 65 billion in requests. So that 35 billion that's just sitting over in the EIDL bucket would be very useful right now over in a different bucket. But I spoke with I spoke with Congresswoman Manning's office this morning. I've got a call with her hopefully this week. They're just trying to find a spot on her calendar. But you just shared some good information. I didn't realize that that much money was left in that bucket. But that may be something I ask her about is can we reallocate that to a different bucket where it's a bit more effective?
Yeah. And as far as I know, about a billion of that 35 has been allocated already. So it's just a small amount of that.
Yeah. I think part of the problem, Algernon, was the fact that a lot of business, small business or business people, period, they did not really understand the distinction between the EIDL and the PPP because everybody heard about the PPP, not realizing that the EIDL was a totally separate program. And I think that's because, like, I know it myself. I didn't apply for the PPP because I knew about the EIDL, and people heard there's more information about the PPP. I think that's really the problem.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with you. The one little bit of info that I think may be of interest is that there's still a lot of applications and for idle money, original idle money, and now idle increase requests in the pipeline, and so that may it may suck up half of that 35 billion. That's for the applications that are in the pipeline now. And it also goes to the other big ticket disasters like the hurricanes and the forest fires and the earthquakes. They got to have that set aside for those types of other type of disasters too.
Okay. Well,
for those, Wanda mentioned she's having issues getting an idle increase for a 501c3 nonprofit. Do you have to have filled a full 990 return? I don't think so. They do use financial statements. So if you have a 2017, 18, 19 return to give to the SBA, that would help your application. Because remember, the application is based on your pre-disaster level of revenue. So they want to see what you're making before the pandemic hit in order to base your loan application on, your loan amount on, to keep your doors open during the pandemic. So if you don't have 2020, it's not a big issue, but definitely you would need 18 and 19 and 17 if you go back and get it. Hope that helps out a little bit. Only have 99 e-postcard. Okay. I'm not too familiar with nonprofits, but if you want to email me, I can find out what you would have to give them as a nonprofit and help you maybe one-on-one offline. All right. I think that's wrapping it up. I don't see any other questions coming through. Algernon, it's up to you if you want to wrap it up or if you want to keep on going.
No, we're fine. I appreciate you. It's just right at 3 o'clock or 3:03, so we're about an hour in. I appreciate your time, Patrick, and I hope that everybody got a lot of value out of it. I know I did, just listening to some of the questions. Just to repeat again, the presentation, as soon as we end the meeting today, the entire presentation is available on the Facebook page. It was broadcasted live, so you're welcome to go access it there. You may need to give us, if you want to access it on our YouTube channel, which is Eat, Drink, Triad on YouTube, give us about 24 hours to get it processed and upload it there. But and then I think most of you all probably have my contact information if you need to follow up with me directly. I'm happy to try to answer questions, but the person that you really need to speak to is Patrick. So make sure you do capture his email address and phone number and that kind of thing. So again, you all, thank you all. The Triad Food and Beverage Coalition was honored to host this, and I hope you all will keep up with Eat, Drink, Triad. Thank y'all.
All right.
Thank you all.
Take care.
Thank you, Patrick and all.